Good evening, friends. A warm welcome to all. At the beginning, let me welcome Mr. CA Nilesh Vikamji, past President CA, CS Sutanu Sinha, past Secretary, Institute of Company Secretaries of India. Dear friends, I take great pleasure on behalf of Udan Saluters and Rishikesh Vyas to invite you all for today's webinar, COVID-19, where we stand and where we might be heading. As you are aware, this COVID-19 has given businesses with lots of challenges which are very unprecedented in nature. Yet at the same time, there lies some opportunities as well. Now, at that background, what is the way forward to revive the businesses? The webinar shall deliberate on the business issues and revival thereto of the economy. We are extremely privileged to have eminent speakers on the subject matter, which will be of immense benefit to the participants. Now, let me take this opportunity in introducing you at length today's faculty. First, I will proceed to introduce a person who requires no introduction in the field of the chartered accountancy, company secretaryship, and the overall commercial and the business world. Yes, my friends, I am talking about CA Nilesh Vikamji, Senior Partner, Khimji Kuwarji and Company, a chartered accountant, which is established in 1936 and is having 80 years. I'm talking about the firm in the areas of auditing, taxation, business management, consulting services, due diligence, valuations, inspection, investigation, corporate and personal advisory services, etc. If there was one heritage firm, my friends, yes, this is the firm. Now, let me proceed ahead and discuss and deliberate before you in very short the other achievements of Mr. Nilesh Vikamji. He is a member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. He holds a diploma in information system audit, and besides that, he also has a business consultancy studies course. Presently, he is a member special purpose group for preparing the ICAI stakeholders for post COVID-19 challenges and perspectives. Expert Advisory Committee of ICAI, Advisory Committee of Mutual Funds of Securities Exchange Board of India, Risk Management Committee of Central Depository Services India Limited, core group of Bombay Chartered Accountant Societies, Managing Council, member of Chamber of Tax Consultant. Besides that, he also holds various directorships. For some of them include SBI Life Insurance Company Limited, Thomas Cook India Limited, SOTC Travel Limited, SBI Cards and Payment Service Limited, IIFL Finance Limited, IIFL Wealth Management Limited, India Infolink Finance Limited, PNB Housing Finance Limited, Navneet Education Limited, NSEIT Limited. In the past, he also has been a member of Technology Advisory Group of IFAC, Category A Observer of IFAC Board. And he also happens to be the past president of the prestigious Institute of Chartered Accountants of India for the year 1718. My friends, I can go on and go on the achievements of Mr. Nilesh Vikamji, but I deem it fit to just introduce with the backdrop what I have disclosed before you. Mr.
Thank you,
Vikamji,
Rishikesh.
we are very fortunate to have you before us, to have your wisdoms, and I'm very sure not only in terms of your experience but the exposure what you have attained in your professional career is going to be of immense help for all the participants.
Thank
Now,
you.
now I'll proceed to introduce Mr. Sutanu Sinha, a person of multiple talents. His area of expertise includes business sustainability, governance and compliance, business transformation, restructuring and turnaround, integration, growth strategy, M&A transaction support, insolvency practice. Sutanu has over 31 years of professional experience in corporate finance, functioning and governance. He possesses vast experience in corporate planning, finance, international trade, and other allied areas in the course of his previous assignments in MNCs and the public sector undertakings. He is an avid reader and a corporate analyst. He has contributed several papers and articles on different aspects of governance and management and addressed at various workshops, seminars, and conferences, both in India and abroad. He has also happens to be the former chief executive of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He was heading the Academic and Professional Development Directorate of ICSI before taking over as CEO of ICSI. He is also a fellow member of the ICSI and a member of the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators, London. He has a postgraduate in commerce. He stood first in the PG German Studies of Calcutta University. Apart from that, he also had read a symposium in the year 2013 and 15 at Zurich on India's issues and also at numerous international programs across the globe. He was a member of Independent Evaluation Committee of IBA committee constituted as per Reserve Bank of India framework. On 2017, he was, on 17th October 2011, he was appointed by Governor of India as director in the board of Canara Bank for a term of 3 years. And during his tenure, he was also the chairman of the audit committee of the bank. Currently, Sutanu is a partner in BDO Restructuring Advisory LLP, a part of BDO, that is the world's 5th largest financial consultancy firm, and mainly working in the area of sustainable business and specialty on the sustainable finance as insolvency professionally in India. Mr. Sinha, I welcome you for today's webinar, and I am very sure with your vast background, working as a regulator, professional body, PSUs, and now working with a well-known financial consultancy firm. And apart from that, handling one of the biggest insolvency and the winding up projects in India. I'm very sure with your background, the economy and the business, what we are going to deliberate today, the good inputs will be coming in.
Thank you very much, Rishi.
Now I would request all the participants that the format is going to be question and answer, whereby we will be posing some questions what we have shortlisted, and the participants may at any time to the question and answer button below the screen who are participating through the Zoom, and those who are participating through Facebook Live, they may put their queries in the Facebook and will be taking up with the panelists as well. My friends, I would just request you all that your query should be circled around the business and the economy as such, because that is the underlying subject of today's webinar. And I'm very sure both the participants and the speakers, for any other query, they would be available some other time, and we would be taking their guidance in that as well. So with the introduction, now I'll just start today's webinar by posing the very first question to Mr. Nilesh Vikramji. Sir, at the outset, one very simple thought which is coming, where we are currently and where we might be heading. What are your views on this?
First of all, thank you, Rishikesh, for giving me this opportunity. Of course, I have known you since the time you were the chairman of the Western India Regional Council of the ICSI, and I found you to be a very, very dynamic, chairman and a very dynamic company secretary. So thanks, for inviting me. As far as where we are, Rishikesh, I can only share my feeling. My feeling is that possibly what we are going through, this pandemic. I think not a single person who's alive today on this world must have seen something like this happening. In the sense, they said the last pandemic was somewhere more than 100 years back, and hardly we will be able to count people more than 100 years of age would be, we can count them on the fingers. So I would say hardly anybody would be aware of what we are going through. So no one of us have had this experience. It's completely a new world order, and we are entering into a world, I think, where possibly technology, as it is, technology had a huge, I would say, impact on us even before this pandemic. But this pandemic itself has, I would say, accelerated the technology impact on all of us, work from home. And going forward also, what's going to happen is the social distancing whilst you're working, etc. Another thing to be noted, where we are headed, is if the feeling is that possibly this pandemic will get over a month and we'll be back to normal, I don't think so. I think till the time we find the medicine or the vaccination to this problem, to this disease, to this COVID and Corona, I think what is going to happen is we'll be most of the, I would say, the world over, the cities, the towns, the villages will be working in a system of, I would say, containment and spikes. So there'll be areas, for example, what the Indian government has done is from 22nd March, we are on a lockdown. So it has helped sort of minimize the impact of the disease. The sooner as soon as they open up, and which has to be, I think, any day now post 31st May, the cases are going to spike because it's an infectious thing. So we'll have to be ready for this till the time. We can't have this lockdown. Already this is the, will be more than 60 days. We are getting into this lockdown and another, 15 days. So 75 days of lockdown. I don't think no economy of the world can afford that. So we have to start, when we start with whatever precaution, whatever guidelines the government gives, it will happen. And at that time, these cases are going to spike. And what is needed is we'll need much more the medical infra capacity to manage this increase of these spikes. So that is something I think which we'll have to live with. Another challenge which we're finding, I'm feeling is going to happen is increased unemployment, the way it is going, the way the economy is impacted, the way the labor also is moving out of various cities and migrating to their hometowns. And this, increase of unemployment, I think is going to result in social unrest and maybe increased robberies, frauds, etc. And I think we need to be guarded for that. And getting the labor, again, this migrant labor back into the work is going to be a huge challenge. For example, if you just saw our Honorable Finance Minister yesterday, she increased the Manrega by 40,000 crore. It is 60,000 crore budget and 40,000 crore increase. They made it 1 lakh crore. So if a person is going to get back work home, maybe 600 rupees a day, the husband wife team, and plus whatever other income they have, the farm income, marginal farm income, I don't think they're going to come around and come back to the city. Till the time they're assured that they're going to get a safe place to live. Currently, they're living in a 10 by 10 accommodation, around 8-10 people living. Number two, the medicines are in place. And the way the psychological impact has happened on them at this current juncture, when they were left completely high and dry when this lockdown happened, and no food, nobody to take care of them. I think that's going to be, I think, a major issue, bringing them back. And we are headed into more learning environment. I think all of us will be learning more how to live with this environment. And those who are going to be adaptable will win the future. So I think we'll have to be more disciplined, more cautious, more innovative. And how do we work in this new normal? And we'll have to change ourselves to look at new opportunities. The way we've been doing business earlier, I think that has to change completely. That's my take on where we are and where we are headed.
Mr. Sinha, just to take it forward from what Mr. Vikramji has just beautifully summed it up, and if I have to just categorize this in the bullet point, I think the first point what Mr. Vikramji is trying to highlight is the medical and the healthcare. And the whole idea of this lockdown was to enable the government to prepare a basic infrastructure. Here we are ready for the next phase. And while what is the next phase? The next phase is that we have to be ready with the new normal of an abnormal. That we have to live with the mask, the social distancing, and live with the disease maybe for a minimum period of 1 year, until and unless the medication is not there. Apart from that, in the whole process during this duration, the economy has already suffered in last 2 months. And going forward, it is not that if I have to give an analogy of the car, if you are in the March, prior to 20th March, if you are driving in the 4th or the 5th gear, immediately that gear would be there. We'll have to commence from the first gear itself, and it will be taking some time. So what you feel key now, where we are heading, and what should be the approach, not only of the government, but for each individual? Like Mr. Vikramji rightly pointed out, that you have to innovate and you have to improve.
Rishi, thanks to Nilesh. He covered most of the thing, of course, what we are concerned almost everybody throughout the world. My first concern is that this virus, it's a medical problem. It came as a medical problem, and now it is pandemic throughout the world, not in India, not in even a particular continent. It is throughout all of the continents it is happening. So, and this virus is supposed to stay. Only thing we are hoping that either we would have a vaccine or we don't have vaccine. The third thing is that we may have medicine for that, or we don't have medicine for that. If you analyze this situation in this simple way, then one thing we must agree, everybody throughout the world, that we need to survive along with this COVID-19. You cannot kill COVID-19 from throughout the world at a time. Maybe it is killed in India, but tomorrow it again may come. So second problem is what I feel is that the uncertainty regarding discovery of this vaccine, at the same time, some invention of some medicines. Nothing is happening so far. So assume these two are also normal. So what you say it is absolutely right. This abnormal normal is a normal. And I always believe in this Darwin's theory, survival theory. So if you think from that angle, that survival of the fittest should be happening. So first objectivity of any jurisdiction, any nation today is to keep their citizen healthy. That is the first objectivity we should have. Whatever activities we are doing, our focus would be to keep our citizen healthy and also very much protective, so that we can protect ourselves from the virus. So considering these two presumptions, if we lay down our future plan, and of course future plan would be in three phases, short term and of course that medium term and long term basis. So you will find that long-term planning is very much difficult today, because you don't know whether there will be further surge of virus again or not, or whether there will be another virus coming in place of this virus or not. Our experience today says so. So we need to concentrate on a short-term and medium-term. Short-term and medium-term, I mean to say it is few months as well as 1 to 2 years only. So more focus India we should have on these immediate short-term measures to keep its citizens very much healthy, and mentally also keep them positive and healthy, so that we can combat virus through a different way, Indian way, I would say. And there plays a vital role of our ancient knowledge, our knowledge of naturopathy, our knowledge of yoga, our knowledge of different indigenous medicines and other things. I think that to keep ourselves very healthy, and at the same time, these are also less costly, so everybody can afford it. So we need to go for those. We need to go for those, because you cannot provide medicine to everybody at any point of time and at any place. So we need to teach ourselves or our people that you take these things, don't do that, please do these things. So SOP for the country, health SOP for the country is very much essential. That is my feeling today.
So Mr. Sinha, I think you and Mr. Nilesh has rightly pointed out where we are and where we are heading. One thing is for sure, whatever has happened, that has happened, and there is no point pondering back, but only way to look forward is for tomorrow, right? Now, the next question which is arising is how to restart the economy. For example, today, a small example, like in a city like Mumbai, Amazon has already started non-essential commodities also. So I'm just trying to raise it. Now it feels a little more normal compared to the previous day. So now slowly and slowly, all the business activities will, I'm very sure, start to operate, maybe with some guidelines from the government side as well. And there will be various. So what is your view, how the economy can be revived, and what are the steps, A, B, C, three categories, if we have to choose from, how it should be?
Yeah, Nilesh, I'm just first answering it, then you can also place your views on this.
Please.
As such, Rishi, to me, it is not stopped. Business is not stopped. Only what we did, we stopped our production, we stopped our service to the people. We have two segments only. One is product and another is service. So both is stopped because of only one thing. What is that? That is the virus contamination. This is the only reason we stopped every operation, right? So we did not have capital constant as a whole, a country. I would not refer to for sick industries or healthy industries. Country as a whole, our capital constant is less today. Secondly, our manpower is there. Thirdly, all resources are there. There is a very good market in the country also. Only thing, due to contamination threat, we stopped operations. We stopped everything so that first we can protect our lives. So now, gradually, over the 2 months, we learned a little bit to live with the virus. Tomorrow, again, after numbers of SOPs, government, I must thank government that they are providing so many guidelines, both the state governments and the central governments. So these guidelines, as well as our learning out of this, would evolve a new economy automatically, so that that would be evolving at the same time correcting economy also, because it would not be foolproof from day one. Maybe today I have taken a decision because it's an unknown situation. We are just working. We don't know what is happening. The other side also don't know what they would be getting out of our operations. So at the same time, you need to operate, you need to provide service. So I just visualize this thing in a very funny way. Don't take it otherwise, but very simplest and funny way. What as a company or as a corporation, as a person, I need to deliver. I need to deliver a product corona-free. I need to deliver a service that is corona protected or that is also corona-free. Means, I'm giving you one simple example of recent India happenings. One of our big companies sent one consignment to South Korea, and the consignment is stopped at Busan port for 14 days or some days. The reason is very simple, very interesting reason. They were quarantined, the ship was under quarantine, and ship was carrying only metals. Only metals they are quarantined. They kept the ship in quarantine so that metals is virus free. Similarly, in the service industry also, whenever there is service, for example, there is a big challenge for the restaurants and other industry. I think there are 74 lakhs people working in the country. This industry is suffering today. They don't know what to do. But their problem is that if you open a restaurant, there may be contamination. So at this point, this is the biggest challenge we do have, that how to deliver service, how to get the product, assuring my customer or my consumer that this is corona-free. If I can address this problem, I think all the problems are solved.
Mr. Vikamji, what will be your views?
Yeah, whilst agreeing with Sutanu, I think, see, basically, as we mentioned earlier, we have to start. See, already we are 60 days into the lockdown, sooner rather than later. And we will continue to have the challenge of the pandemic. I think the disease is not going to, we can't wish away the disease till the time the medicine is there. So maybe 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, we don't know when the medicine is found. So we need to learn to live with this virus. And we, with whatever guidelines, you know, the business have to start. So currently, we are killing the businesses. There's zero revenue, there's zero anything. Whether restaurants, hotels, airlines, you name it, and even factories are shut, trading businesses are shut. So this, in my view, is not, yeah, for the first 50 days for learning, understanding, for creating infrastructure for medical, fine. Now, you know, we at least have to try and see, assuming, say, you start for 15 days in, say, maybe an orange zone, if not a red zone. What's the, you know, how much is the contamination increasing? And of course, take all measures. See, where there are absolutely problematic areas, you freeze them. Don't allow people to move out of them. For example, Dharavi in Mumbai or some other place where there is much more, I would say, intensity of the disease, which is there. So we'll have to start, I think, sooner rather than later. And yeah, take all precautions what are required, as Sutanu mentioned. If it is restaurant, you know, maybe the quantum of sales may go down in the sense, you know, 3 foot distance where the people will be sitting. We cannot be crowding around. Airlines also similar. Maybe alternate seats will be vacant. But we'll have to go. We'll have to step down. Yeah, there will definitely be some increase of the cases. We need to address that. Parallelly, why don't we propagate the alternate remedies Sutanu was mentioning? For example, Mr. Rajiv Bajaj is propagating camphora as a preventive thing. For example, in Ayurveda, we have got a family doctor friend, Dr. Devchand Gala. he's recommending that you take less than 1/4 teaspoon of ginger powder. All normal remedies available with us. Just let it remain in your mouth for a few 5 minutes, and then gulp it down, and then sniff it also. So it clear your nostrils and all these. So wherever the virus can get into, so it cleans that particular cell, and the virus will not be able to stay there and remain there. So I think we'll need to work on that. Another very important thing on starting the business is somewhere, I think, in this way we read in between, that Indonesia has taken the lead for the companies moving out of China. I'm aware that Invest India also is doing a lot of work as far as capturing that particular market. Almost 600 companies are in touch with Invest India last when I know about a week or so back. So how do we grab this opportunity of shifting of at least some manufacturing and other base from China? So I think that is one area where government will have to work on, and that will have to start immediately. And the most important thing, I think, if you look at the way the regulations are being drafted even now for this pandemic, assuming something happens in your factory, the owner will be responsible. Now we need to, I think that mindset of the bureaucracy has to change. The fact of the matter is, whatever one may try, whatever distancing will keep, it is but natural that some of the the infections will happen somewhere. Assuming I start my office, I'll take all care. Only 1/3 people coming in, work from home, etc. But we don't know. And as is being told, I think most of us are going to get infected by this disease one time or the other. Maybe let's hope that we get infected after the medicines comes in. That's the only hope we have. So we don't have to struggle the other manner. So keeping that in mind, we have to be realistic. Please don't have the punishment orientation which you have. Yeah, the carefulness has to be there, but be supportive, trust the business. I think prior to the pandemic, our observation has been the government, trust on the business has gone down substantially. And the same mindset should not continue post the pandemic and even during the pandemic. I think that they have to have trust and faith in the business that they will be able to, do the best possible. Yeah.
So the next question, Mr. Vikramji, I would like to throw upon is I, as a key economic student, and John Edward Keynes, the well-renowned economist, is one of the economists whom I follow very closely, his thoughts, his principles and everything. And one of the philosophies he has propounded was a multiplier effect, whereby you invest 100 rupees and it's divided into 10 rupees into 10 windows. And again, that is in a domino effect of 1. So you have from that limited 100 rupees, you create more, and you spread it. So in a similar way, I am very sure now with the business once again starting off or commencing off, there is going to be requirement of huge level of finances. So whether it be a big entity like a Tata, Reliance or L&T, or a small MSME segment, or any professionals, be it maybe. So what do you think is going to be the flavor of the season 6 months, 8 months, 1 year down the line? Whether it will be equity based, because when we talk about equity, there are only two routes. One is the IPO, whereby your domestic public come and put their money. But more importantly, the foreign money has to come in the ways of the FII. Then only this equity route would be so successful, or the debt route. What's your view on that? As a businessman, as a businessman, what you feel in the MSME should be looking out for?
See, number one, it will depend on each entity, how their debt equity is geared and all. In my view, initially, the MSME will be, I'm saying immediate, not 6 months, 1 year down the line. The government has come out with a fantastic, 3 lakh crore of government guarantee on incremental funding by banks and NBFC. And I think, as all of us know as finance students, the cost of debt is always less than the cost of equity. Apparently, equity doesn't have a cost, but people in finance, we know that the cost of equity is always higher than the cost of the debt. So I think the first and foremost is, where possible, the MSMEs have to raise more of debt. And currently with this government, directive of almost 3 lakh crore at 20% funding, I think they have to come out with the structure. I think first and foremost is get this debt which is available. Second, I think going forward 6 months, 1 year down the line, in my view, both debt as well as equity will be equally, available, in the sense, two things. Today, the banks are flush with funds. They are having reverse repos with RBI and all. They don't know what to do. There have been hesitation in lending because of the way again, I'm saying the punishment orientation is there. So they should be given the freedom to lend. There will be some NPAs. Unless there's no mala fide is not established, they should not be punished. So we should encourage, especially public sector banks, how do they start, lending back to the system. Second is, as far as the private equity, you've seen recently, yesterday, General Atlantic invested 6,500 crores in Jio after the earlier tranches. So enough, the US has, opened up the floodgates as far as the liquidity is concerned. So even, I would say, equity money coming through VCs, FIIs, etc., I don't think there'll be a challenge much. It will be available for the QIPs, etc. Only thing, the valuations are typically the challenge with the Indian promoters is, say, they're seeing the valuation pre-20th of March. And now they're seeing, 25, 30, 40% down or 50% down.
Yeah.
I think that's a major, I would say, psychological hurdle with the Indian business will have to overcome. If they're seeing a higher price and giving the equity at a lower price, I think will be a challenge, which I think at a point of time they will be working on. Another area where I think the huge potential can come up is on the stress asset funding. Whether we like it or not, Rishikesh, especially Mr. Sutanu will add more on this. In my view, the amount of stress assets are going up substantially. The NPAs and the stress assets post, okay, you've got a 3-month moratorium, maybe they may extend it a bit. But those businesses which are on the borderline are going to have a challenge. This 2 months this is the last straw on the camel's back, in my view. So they may be able to survive with this moratorium and all a little bit, but there will be more stress assets available. And I think those pooling of funds also coming from abroad will be helpful. Foreign currency borrowings, I think, again, government is going to open up. Before the pandemic, I'm on a board of a company, and that time the foreign markets were not very favorable to the Chinese companies because of the pandemic. It had not come out openly. Just I'm saying somewhere second week of March or so. The company which I'm on the board was able to raise $400 million of debt money at a very good rate at that point of time. So debt funding internationally also will be, available. And I think each company will have to assess what position till the time it can manage its liquidity by raising debt and all, they should, and then at an appropriate time go for the equity funding also, and which will be available. In my view, that for good companies, that will not be a challenge.
I think real words of wisdom coming from Mr. Vikramji. Mr. Sinha, what would you like to add to that?
Yeah, actually, Nilesh has covered most of the things. One is that, in respect of this SME segment, these are catering not only SME segments. You know that big companies, they're getting services and the products from the SME. So once you are pumping into money into the SME segments, this is indirectly supporting the big industries also. Because working capital constraint is always a problem for SMEs in India. So that is one aspect I really appreciate, that it would boost our system now. Secondly, now what I understand is that many foreign bodies are interested to come to India. That is true also. There are a lot of positive signals are being given by the international investors. So if we can have fund at a LIBOR rate or LIBOR plus rate, that would be really beneficial to this Indian economy. So we need to scout for that. We need to make roadshow for that throughout the world now to bring fund into India. That is, I think, one of the priority work for both the government as well as the professionals like us to bring fund into India, so that we are ready for the next step of operation in India after the switchover of the very straight way. It is a switchover of Chinese and other businesses towards India or Vietnam or any other countries they're preferring to. But as a preferred country, we need to lay down a platform where we need to assure the international investors that, look, there are no red tapeism, there is less complexity in doing business in India. Of course, we are now 67 or 68 in doing business, but we need to give more comfort to the international investors. Fund is no problem. We need to keep ourselves ready as corporate for the new phase. And nonetheless, priority at this phase is not the funding. It is that what should we do? What is my business in next couple of months and next couple of years? Maybe I'm doing some business and tomorrow it is, for example, I again come back to the restaurant business. Say I'm an investor, put money in restaurant business. If this continues for 1 year, I am totally gone out of the picture. So I need to have my alternative plan. And that should be based on these endemics and its outcome and its probable risk mitigation. We need to analyze the business as a whole first now.
So it takes me to the next question. If in very
Rishikesh,
short,
if I
yes,
can just
yes.
add on,
Sure,
the
sure.
world interest rates in some of the areas have been negative. So Japan has been negative for a number of years now. Europe also is into negative interest rate scenario.
Yes.
Even
Yes.
US is at a record low. So I think the availability of funds will be substantial. And the other risk is the foreign exchange risk, which in the current slowdown period, thanks to the oil being wherever it is, I don't think the foreign exchange rates also will be going anywhere. And of course, I would always advise that people should have fully hedged cost of borrowing, not to keep the position open. I think at a very reasonable rate, we should be able to get the international borrowings in time to come. Especially one other thing I think which we need to think is the Chinese companies will be at disadvantage. There's a huge anti-China, I would say, sentiment which has come up in various countries. So when Indian issuers go to the international market, I think that earlier the Chinese paper was being lapped up. So now there will be I think this is a time where we should raise reasonably cost-effective funds abroad. Fully hedged, of course, I would not advise keeping position despite foreign exchange being, I don't think it's going to run away anyway. It's going to remain stable because our imports are low.
So I think very well you have summed it up about the finance debt versus equity. Now on the next level, if I may ask Mr. Vikramji, if there is one word of advice or some motto you would be wishing to give to the fellow CFOs, what would it be?
To CFOs, of course, the current challenge is on the liquidity management as a major role to task cutouts. What has happened is 2 months of shutdown, all the overheads being as it is, whether it is your salaries, your interest, etc., your collections being slow. So liquidity management, payment on due dates to salaries, rent will be crux, receivables from the customers, focus on cost reduction. I think that will be a major area which will be, for the CFOs will have to focus on. And the immediate need will be how do I finalize my accounts, the audit and all with this lockdown period. 31st March is over, 2 months are gone. Some companies are already, we have seen the results being announced, but at this point of time, if you do a comparison, I think hardly 20% of the companies which should have been giving the result by now have given. So still a lot of work is still on the way. So how do I close my account? What provisions do I make for the COVID related area? Compliance with the tax norms and funding, potential from the government schemes, from this MSME schemes or from the international level. And how do I manage my working capital for next 12 months? See, earlier the working capital cycle could have been 3 months, 6 months. Now, definitely is going to be extended by minimum 3 months, the way the whole cycles are running. So how do I manage my whole affairs? So I think that is the key focus for the CFOs as of now. How do I, manage the...
Do you think it's one thing blessing in disguise, the timing of the COVID? Because around 21st or 22nd, we have been under lockdown. That is March end, literally. So that financial year whatever business was required, it has already been done. So that will not have...
No. The feedback I'm getting is for most of, I'm not saying all, but most of the industries, the last 10-15 days of March are the things where they push the sales, dealers, etc., etc. And some of that, the whole, the thunder was lost. The thunder, see the targets, etc. So a lot of work happens. You look at the insurance companies, the manufacturing companies. So I believe the March results will not be as good. Yeah, the hit will be more in April and May with the closure, but March results also will not be. And what's happening is most of the prudent companies are making an additional provisioning for the possible impact. For example, I'm on the board of a credit card company. We made an additional provision, almost 489 crore for the possible. It is additional other than whatever is required, legally, from a perspective of what could be hitting, further. So that I think whichever company can afford, which has got the profitability available with them, are going to go for. So March may not be as rosy as it. You look at Reliance, 6,500 crore inventory impact and all.
So I think automobiles is also one sector which is going to have a big impact because they were already moving from BS4 to BS6, and whatever stock was left, I think BS4 they are going to have a very big impact, and already it is coming ki automobile is going to be a very big hit.
True.
In a negative way.
Yeah, till the time lockdown remains. Once the lockdown opens up, I think there'll be a huge burst of demand of the car. That's what I've been seeing in Wuhan. I've been talking to some auto dealers, and they say the inquiries are huge because people would want to travel in their own cars, as compared to public transport. Right. So initially there will be an increase, after the lockdown gets over. Then maybe it may taper off or whatever.
Mr. Sinha, next question coming your way. In our country, we always debate on the compliance and the non-compliance, the various types of mentality the business owners do have. Do you think with the advent of the COVID and the post that, the companies which were very compliant and which were more into the good governance side, they will have an edge over those companies or those promoters which were non-compliant and the corporate governance was not there?
I am answering from a different angle, Rishi. That is, you know that there is an early warning system in governance in any countries, anywhere. Early warning systems means the companies which are not running the company as per the norms, as per the law, as per the laid down procedure. And these syndromes, wherever it is there, it indicates that company is either is in trouble or they are doing something wrong or they're going to be sick or something. So compliant companies doesn't mean that they're very like good boys in the school classroom. They're good companies. As such, compliant companies and the good governed companies are good companies per se. Otherwise, they cannot be a compliant companies or good governed companies. So every company should do this. As such, there is no hard and fast rule. Simple rule is that you should be 100% compliant and you should have a good governance. But unfortunately or fortunately, we have many defect systems in the country. And that's why there is no level playing. I think that the companies which are very much late compliant, it indicates that they follow standards. They have their own SOPs and they know how to address the crisis situation in a proper way, in a designed way. So like how you mitigate your risk is very much important. So if you have a risk designing, risk is designed in your company, so you can address any type of risk in the company. So so those companies where compliant definitely would be getting advantage under this situation. And we have seen it also. Many companies, they have changed very fast. Now you will find many of them have already opened their operations, and they have laid down the revised procedure. They're following standards also, new standards, and started operation in the country itself. Yes.
Mr. Vikramji, your views, please.
Rishikesh, before that, the earlier point on the CFO, I think the other areas where the CFO will have to focus on is the force majeure, clauses in the various contracts, depending on how they are coming up and how, whether it's an export business is that. I think that's been a major time-consuming thing, which I think already people will be struggling to look at. Then they'll have to look at how to restructure the business to make it more efficient in time to come. And possibly whatever capitalization plans, new capex plans were there for the future, I think they may have to be relooked at whether the capex is required or not now. And of course, work from home and a lot of other, and how to, along with the CEO, they'll have to work on how to restart the whole supply chain, vendors, manufacturing and dealers. I think that will be there. Coming to your question on compliant business versus non-compliant. Rishikesh, I think by this time, if people have not understood this government's mindset, right from the time of demonetization, then the GST, then the way the Companies Act has been changed, the way the IBC is coming up, I would say, so it's a very clear signal that the non-compliant business are going to go under. In the sense, I'm very clear on that. This government doesn't want any non-compliant businesses. So somebody may survive for some time. And the way technology is sort of emanating, see whether you'll get caught somewhere. Unless each and everything is non-compliant, right from the vendor to the ultimate consumer manufacturer, then it's a different ball game. But other than that, I think it is, in my view, next to impossible. And again, a very small example. See, I have been on the board of a number of companies. And we used to look at the business continuity plan, the disaster recovery plans and all. So many times you always felt, whether, of course, we always used to sort of have trials thereof, etc. This time it has come to know, and this generally the large companies follow that, and the small and the mid-size may not be having these plans. I'm not saying non-compliant, but I'm saying having good practices. And let me tell you, the companies which had good business continuity plans, good disaster, all have been doing, there were initial, I would say, teething issues for the work from home and etc. But I think all of them have settled down, a lot of work. And let's take, I'm saying our own profession, there's company secretaries, chartered accountants, and the lawyers. I'm seeing different types of, observations as far as people, how they adopted technology. In this sense, firms, like just for example, before the lockdown happened, 15th March, I remember being a Sunday, we had a partners meeting and we said we need to go for voluntary, work from home. So 16th, everybody came to office. They very clear instead of partners. They gave the work to the people that you need not come to office. Next day, we had about 50% attendance. Again, myself and other partners said we need to cut down. 18th, we had 25%. 19th, we were work from home. So, and luckily, what was required? Virtual private network, this, that, Microsoft Teams, how do we get data from the clients? And I can again share from the listed company. We do about 12, 13 listed companies. Around 10 of them were willing to give data. And of course, work happened. Yeah, it took more time. A lot of documents, took more time to sort of work on. 2, 3 companies were not willing to give data, very, careful. But they didn't have a choice. When they saw the whole world is giving data, of course, we have to be careful, either it's through a virtual private network or through OneDrive, where it doesn't come through your internet and all. So that is I would say, you may again, it's a small line between compliant and non-compliant. So compliant with technology, I'm saying. So I'm very clear that unstructured business, non-compliant businesses will not survive more or long. If you want to survive, even the ones which I would say, the ones with good governance will thrive in these type of problem times. And those which are non-compliant, I think only this thing is they need to move into bettering themselves, or they'll have to perish. I think in my view, the message is clear. Unless they are going to improve, they'll have to perish.
What are some of the key government initiatives which you would like to discuss or highlight, or some value additions or your suggestions government may improve on that, or they should be doing according to you?
One thing, as I mentioned in my view, the best thing which they have done is on the MSME, I think the funding, which will help the MSMEs to revive and restart. Second, I think what the government, again, as I mentioned earlier, they need to restart. Irrespective of, there will be, say, of course, let me again share very clearly, I'm not in government. I'm giving an outside view, non-expert view. But the way I'm seeing, the way the economy is hurt and the way the people are going to be hurt, non-earning members of the public, I think we'll have to restart sooner. So there is another area where government has to look at, and government will have to look at how to bring the migrants, how to give them comfort, psychological and other physical comfort also of coming back and working. I think one area where I am feeling very, sort of slightly unhappy is on, despite Reserve Bank, giving the moratorium and all, the way the banks have reverted, they give moratorium to the individual customer. They didn't give vis-a-vis the corporates, and especially NBFC and all, they were very, very choosy and picky about the, so unless the whole cycle, so for example, what happened with NBFC and HFCs is, they had to give moratorium to their customers, but they were not in turn getting moratorium from the banks. Then of course, RBI pushed them, prodded them. So unless the whole ecosystem is going to coordinate, and, it should not be that one particular sector is going to be looking at bias. So let's look at the real estate sector. Of course, they've done excesses in the past. I think currently they are gone virtually, by and large, except few companies you can count on your fingers. Labor not being there, sales not happening. So I think the government has to focus on how to revive the real estate sector, because that will kickstart a lot of, cement, steel, right, labor. So otherwise, currently there are no measures on the real estate also. NBFC, gems and jewelry, see, thanks to Mr. Nirav Modi, the whole sector is untouchable. Now that is employing, I don't know how many lakhs of people in the cutting, polishing, as Surat and all. And I know people, good companies also. I got one client which had got a 1,500 crore outstanding 4 years back, Rishikesh. Today it's down to 500 crore and decreasing every day. No bank is doing it. They're willing to give collateral of real estate, because real estate, they are not able to sell the real estate in the market. But no banks is willing to, fund them. Then this one good thing about the tenders which they have done, up to 200 crores, it will not be global, it will be only local. I think that will increase work for the MSME, will be able to pitch for that. And a lot of other long-term measures, whether it is agriculture, that intermediation, they are going to focus on the fisheries, about 20,000 crores. So I think, but those are longer-term things. Currently, in my view, what is required from the government, again, I'm not an economist, but what I can understand is, how do I kickstart the demand back? So unless I give money in the hands of businesses, say, for example, what's happened in the US, they're giving money to the businesses, you pay the salaries of your employees. See, today, the government is saying you give salaries, but question is, how do I give salaries? My cash flows are stopped. I don't have money to give to the salaries. My debtors are not paying me. I got the interest in the loan repayment on my head. So what do I do first? And zero contribution, my factories are shut.
And the biggest irony, Nilesh bhai, if I may just pip in, is that on the one hand, government is asking the private sector to pay the salaries. On the second hand, they themselves are cutting the salary of even of the police persons.
Even
So
of
this
the
is quite,
doctors.
quite
Doctors.
irony.
Ironical, very ironical. So I'm saying, so this is where possibly we'll have to work on. Government has to give funds either. See the way they are giving subsidies to farmers directly, DBT. Something similar has to happen to the blue collared workers also, the people through the companies or whatever. The companies need aid. I think that large part of the industry has been kept apart. Fantastic work done on the agriculture, and I would say, giving food and ration to the people. But how do I get, unless money comes into the people's hand, I think there'll be a chance. So that's one area possibly, in my view, we'll have to, see that government can do something on that area.
Mr. Sinha, you would like to add something?
Yeah. Rishi, I'm now working in the infra sector mainly. What I find is very interesting is that, infra sector, it works pan-India, and at the same time, it involves a lot of labor forces and mainly migrant laborers also. And we use materials, raw materials from different states. So economy should be open in full swing. Otherwise, we are stopping the development work also in the country. That would boost in all perspective, because you would be providing the job for the people. At the same time, your development work would restart, and you can bring the economy back into the full form. But today, due to under this lockdown 4, still we are not in a position to operate in full swing, because at the very beginning I told you that this is a health problem, this is a problem of human being, and it has become pandemic. If we could address this virus problem as a virus problem, probably today we need not discuss all these things. We could run the economy parallelly also. But at this point of time, we need economy to open up in full swing. Otherwise, people cannot be fed by the country also. Economic activities should start in full swing now.
So,
yeah.
So just taking it forward with your tons of experience, what you both gentlemen possess with you, and it would be on the fittest of the thing if I ask next question. What are the problems you feel the young chartered accountants and the young company secretaries would be facing at this point of time, along with the fresher lawyers? And what is the wisdom or the suggestion you would like to give to them?
Nilesh, should I start?
Yeah.
Nilesh, please.
See, I would sort of turn around the question. In my view, the young chartered accountants, young company secretaries, young lawyers will have an advantage at this juncture because of the because they are tech savvy. I think it's the older generation which will be facing a problem with people like me. I don't know what Sudhanu.
I like to agree, of course.
How to adopt to technology, work from home, which will be the new norm. How to work in the, as I mentioned, cloud or virtual private network, Microsoft Teams. I think they will be able to adapt faster, better to the technology environment rather than the older one. So, in my view, it's the reverse. Second, I think the young chartered accountants as a major opportunity, what I see is how do you handle the MSMEs at this juncture? In the sense, they don't have enough, I would say, capable staff. The large companies have got enough and more of professionals helping them. The MSMEs will need support in the liquidity management. How do you take benefit of this 3 lakh crore, guaranteed funds which the government is giving? There's 50,000 crore of equity which may come in through this fund of funds, I think, which possibly SIDBI or somebody will be managing. So those are the areas. Plus, I think another 20,000 crore for the the stressed MSMEs. I think this will be one huge area where I think the young CAs, CS, and lawyers can help their clients in the advisory. See, okay, I'm an auditor, I'm a compliance guy as a company secretary. All this is fine. So that is, can I change? Can I wear a different hat and be a business advisor? And so that help MSMEs will require, and it will be win-win for both, for the professionals also and for the young, for the businessmen also. I think that's, in my view, that will be the way forward. Sutam, you can add,
Yeah. Before that, I want to share one thing that if you see the birds, when it is raining, they hold their legs very strongly on the branch of the tree and wait for when the raining would be stopped, and then they fly. So it is a time, it's a time when everybody should be putting their legs very strongly on the ground and wait for the good time to come. So what one should do? I think that most of us are now following Soho. I say Soho means self-office, home office, and that is very less costly. So one way it is advantageous to the professionals that you can reduce your cost like anything by using technology. Number two is that what Nilesh said, I absolutely agree to that, that we need to change our profile from that, say, some audit job, from compliance job to the advisory job. I suggest one step further, not only advisory job, but to do business jobs also. For example, procedural jobs, say for example, office-related works and other things. Through use of technology, you can help your client so that your client can concentrate only on business of manufacturing, selling, etc., etc. Other things they can pass on to you. So you can remodel your business structure, the professional business structure in such a way that you can maximize your activities. And more activities means value addition, of course. Third point is that, Rishikesh, I want to highlight one thing that we face this type of situation as professional, say every 10 years, 15 years, say sometimes subprime comes, sometimes something happens. So there is ups and downs in the profession, but as a professional, we must be ready for any unforeseen situation, and we should build our resilience. Of course, credit base we need to also increase. We need to approach through an institutional system. We can also approach to the financial markets so that our professionals are also supported. It may be happening. Okay.
Real pearls of wisdom coming from you two gentlemen with tons of experience. No one can doubt or debate on that. Next question is the three words, dreaded words, without which I think no business can operate, or before taking any major decision, those are the three words. That is the TAX, tax. So what is your view, Nilesh, especially you being expert in this subject area? What are the scope of, rather than seeing what government has already done, that is already in the domain, with your experience, what you feel is the scope for improvement, if I may put it in a positive manner, in the both direct and indirect taxation side? You wish it would be done.
Rishikesh, I'm not now saying as the chartered accountant, and people will still be maybe even company secretaries and lawyers. But coming from what is required for the country, what is required for the business growth. So you can't kill the hen which is laying the golden egg. So what I have been feeling is over the many years, we have been killing the hen which is laying the golden egg by, number one, huge compliance. I think it is absolutely unbearable in the quantum of compliance. Then look at the recent one also. They've reduced the TDS by 25%. Why can't you just do away with TDS? The amount of compliance ease which should have been happening. Anyway, they're going to collect advance tax in the installments, June, September, December. What difference of the non-collection of tax would have happened, I'm saying, except the foreign entities. I'm saying for the Indian entities, contractors, professionals, and other than salary, I think salary, they need not file return later on. But other than that, I think, so compliance is GST, look at the GST compliances. So that is one area where I think the income tax and the GST both has to focus on. Second, the quantum of penalties, even for procedural non-compliances, I think there's across various things that needs to be reduced. That punishment orientation, penalty orientation has to go down. Third is the harassment from the officers, I would say. I think no work has happened on that. And unfortunately, this government, rather than working on that area, has more emboldened the, I would say, revenue officials. Why is there no accountability? See, they have to be given powers because I think some of our businesses also thick-skinned, appreciable. But why no accountability? Assuming they have passed some wrong orders, why are they not held accountable? Why not personal, the amount of turmoil which the individual has to go, the businessman has to go through for wrong orders, paying 20% advance tax for appeal, etc. It's absolutely criminal in my view. So accountability of the officers, in my view, has to be substantial. And again, as to the change of mindset, this is a time to gain trust of the businesses. It cannot be the less of trust. So I think trust, even from a department perspective, income tax and GST vis-a-vis the business, I think less of compliance, less of and changes of laws. I think the amount of changes happening. Please poise, assuming however important it may be. I can just share one example. You are an expert on Companies Act, Rishikesh. The 2013 Act was a top class act. I think Sutanu also has been a part of the ICSI, as a CEO. Top class act, best governance practices across the world. The UK, Canada, they borrowed from wherever they could. One would have expected some stability in that Act, 2013 Act, but it has been amended already 5 to 6 times as of now. The Act, the rules, there are 44 set of rules under the Act. They've been amended a few months back. I took a count about 180 times. In the photo, it came in 14 and 15 in 3 to 4 years. No, what is this going on? And at the drop of the head, they change it. Assuming you're going to change it, do it once a year, do it once in 6 months. I think some periodicity, do it after public debate, nothing. The rules, at least the rule changes are just happening like that. So I think we need to pause somewhere, and that has to be told the bureaucracy. Unfortunately, under this government, that has increased manifold rather than going down. So I think we need some pause, some stability in the laws, good, bad, ugly, whatever it may be, and more trust and faith in the businesses.
Mr. Sinha, I would welcome you for your comments if you have on this subject matter.
I would speak as a businessman now.
Right.
Instead of being a professional or something. I always welcome that reduction in the tax level, tax structure. If you remember that couple of years back when Jaitley Sahab was the finance minister, he said that gradually, corporate taxes would be standardized and reduced. But definitely industry want that thing. Number one. Number two, what Neela says is absolutely right. It should be the simplest structure. Third one is very much important at this point of time. When we are giving benefit to many things, we need to relook into all the GST rates. And we need to give some benefits to the industries which are in stress now. That we need to relook further, I believe. That would help the industry a lot. This is the two things. Third one is that in case of individual taxation also, it is such a situation, that my future is uncertain. So whatever money is deducted from my coffer is a painful experience for me. So if we are resilient as a nation, as a country, as a government, we can pass on some benefit to our people. I appreciate that PF and other things, but it could be much more better. It would be better if it could be much more better in that way.
Mr. Vikramji, what will be your views on the liquidity part on the overall businesses and how they should be dealing with it? What are the challenges and how they should be coping with it?
That's the biggest challenge as of now, Rishikesh. Liquidity, as I told you, since all the operations are stopped, my outflows are continuing in whatever manner, the fixed overheads as we discussed. So managing liquidity is the key. The next, I think at least minimum 1 year, if not more, I think all business will have to focus on how to manage the liquidity, what expenditure can be, as I mentioned, whether the capex is required or not, what are the immediate payments so that I don't default into loans or liabilities, what can I defer, what can I reduce cost. So liquidity management, where from how do I collect funds from my receivables, which is there, how do I push them? So I think this will be the crux. So as and when the business is going to restart, I think these all parameters are going to come into play for easier collection. I think this is going to be the biggest challenge of the times to come for next 6 to 9 months.
And what about the risk part? What are the major risks you see businesses must be facing?
First and foremost,
sorry to put it in a different way, you also happen to be a director in very prestigious company, and that too as an independent director. So what are the risk management, if I may just frame it in a different level, because how the risk management system will be different pre-COVID and post-COVID?
See, one, of course, for the larger companies, I am saying this work from home, the cyber security threat is a major threat and people are focusing on. Second, the collections, as I told you, whether it's an NBFCs or other credit card companies, how do we have the collections from the customers and the clients? So collections focus will be there. assuming as and when the restart happens, say, look at a manufacturing company. See, I'm just giving an example, I'm not on a textile company. Say I'm a textile company based out there down in South. My cotton is being produced in Punjab, Gujarat, Maharashtra, MP. So I need to source cotton from there. I'm making yarn and say garments or whatever down South. Again, that is all India. So how will you manage the whole operations? Right from the vendors, assuming some vendors are impacted in some area, whether it is engineering, whether it's automobiles, assuming some parts are done somewhere else. Say, let's take Gurgaon is one of the key automobile focus area, and maybe Pune. But say if some part is being done somewhere where it is in a red zone where the production is not allowed. So how do you manage what are the critical, I would say items or the non-critical items? How do I manufacture? How do I sell? How do I activate my sales machinery? So, and again, then the liquidity, the payment part of it. How do I manufacture with say less number of people with the social distancing? What will come in? Can I manage my factories like that? In the sense, is it conducive to manufacture with this social distancing or not? So how do I manage? So I think this has opened up a huge new challenge in this. How do I work under these new guidelines? Managing the guidelines of the social distancing and whatever else is there. Second, how do I manage the supply from the vendors in the sense some are in some problem areas? How do I sell? My sale is all across, whether it is in India or outside India. So I think this has opened up, and it is huge work which is required for the business and for the CEOs and the CFOs to look at this whole area. So I think from a risk perspective, not one solution. Depending on each entity, there could be different risk and different risk mitigation parameters which will come. I just gave some examples.
Right.
Of that.
So now one more question, which is I'm a little skeptical about one of the decisions which has been taken, whereby under the insolvency mechanism, under the insolvency and bankruptcy code, the limit has been increased from 1 lakh to 1 CR. On the one hand, if we see, it seems at first a very good move from the government. But on the second, I think it will also have a negative impact on many of the SMEs, because there would be the operational creditors and their money would be stuck. And now with this limit being enhanced, I think that also would be one of the major areas which I don't think no one would have looked at from that angle. So Mr. Sutanu Sinha, what will be your views? I would like you to first come into this. The limit which has been increased vis-a-vis the impact on the MSMEs who happen to be the operational creditors.
Rishi, that if you see the structuring part of IBC implementation and operations going on under IBC, say CIRP process or the liquidation process, sometimes it is very costly to MSMEs. That is number one. Number two is that before this IBC also, MSMEs were there. There were some mechanisms under which their stresses were addressed. So if we can evolve the alternatives to that, I think that 1 lakh to 1 crore is no problem. For example, now you are funding to all MSMEs and offering under COVID. Of course, it is an abnormal situation. Assume this abnormal situation is normal situation. Somehow it has been addressed. So in that way, if you see that if you give some alternative solution, it is all right. Otherwise, of course, your concern is right, that they are otherwise deprived from what is given under IBC.
On a lighter note, I would like to add that always I feel that IBC on the operational creditors, it's something like a mother telling to a small child, you sleep, otherwise Gabbar will come. A fear factor was there. So for the under the IBC, you see, once you send a demand notice, the promoters were afraid, they were petrified. They will approach the lawyers, the company secretaries and chartered accountants. How should I resolve it? With this limit getting increased, on the other side, I'm looking, there are two sides of a coin. One thing is that MSME should not be put into the problems, but on the other side, their recoveries, it may be from a big industry. I may be, as a MSME, I may be having 60 lakhs or 70 lakhs recoverable from a Tata Group or a Reliance Group, hypothetically speaking. I will not be able to invoke it.
The major problem is not that. I am telling you what is the major problem for MSMEs today in India under IBC. If you were a supplier to a big house, and that house is under IBC procedure, say it is going through CIP procedure or liquidation procedure. So in case of liquidation procedure, there is a concept called waterfall mechanism. It's simply prioritizing a payment, repayment to the different stakeholders. In that way, numbers for MSMEs come later than bankers or other financial creditors. So most of the cases, they lose their money. So it's a much more bigger threat than this 1 lakh or 1 crore threat. So many MSMEs are suffering from this. If a big company is under IBC or CIP process, those MSMEs who are totally dependent on big industry in our country, many places it is suffering now. This is a hard fact.
Mr. Vikramji, this question coming your way. Post-COVID, how you see the change in the customer mindset? Because ultimately, if you're talking about a business or economy, ultimately it is driven by consumers. If I spend, then you earn out of it. So what do you feel the change in the customer or a consumer viewpoint or a mindset?
Before I respond to that, Rishi, I want to go back to the earlier question, the risk mitigation mentioned. What I missed out is for some industries, I think the major challenge, whether there'll be a going concern or not, in the sense of from a director's perspective or from the auditor's perspective, we'll have to see how they're going to manage. Say, for example, whether it's an airline business or whether it's, say, maybe hotels also, going forward, what are the projections? How will they be surviving this particular pandemic later on? Restaurants, as we discussed, there will be some, so we'll have to focus on how is the going concern going to be there, and assuming they've got debt on their books, how the debt is going to be repaid and what is the type of moratorium or restriction possible. And from an auditor's or the professional perspective, we'll have to look at the diminution in the value of the, I would say, the assets which also are there. So the value in use or the, I would say, the diminution in the value. So those are the areas where, from a risk perspective, apart the going concern being the major challenge of some of the businesses, not all. And how will the value in use of the asset? So that is one thing. Coming to the customer mindset, there will be a, as all of us know, there will be a huge, I would say, caution which will be there in the customers going forward for different type of things. We have been used to now for the last 2 months only surviving on the basics, roti, kapda or makan. I don't think we have gone on to any fanciful things like restaurants or travel or going for a vacation or even a short nearby vacation to Lonavala or Mahabaleshwar or wherever. So I think it will be a new mindset, customer mindset. I think we'll have to be geared up for the new customer mindset. And even for businesses, I think it will be a new mindset which we'll have to be used to.
Mr. Sinha, your views?
The same thing what Nilesh said is exactly. COVID has changed ourselves a lot. The definition of life, definition of entertainment, definition of everything has been changed throughout the world. It is not only in our country, everywhere, wherever I discuss with friends, they say the same thing. So, and business and industry just scatter us as citizens. We are, in our country, we are near about 138 crores people. We would define that what we need post-COVID period in the country. So naturally, business need to orient towards that. And a lot of analytics is to be made by the business houses to identify which area I would concentrate. And you will be finding, I believe, that many of the industries will be gone from the market also in years to come. And those would be successful if they use technology, if they use innovation as their way of business, and if they're very much systematic. 3 things are very much important in addition to your capital base and other things. So you need to have a very strong management, creative management, and systematic approach to anything. Then you would be successful in doing the things properly.
Rishikesh, I just want to add what Sutanu mentioned earlier. How do I render a COVID-proof or corona-proof service or corona-proof product? You mentioned earlier.
Right.
So, in fact, I think all of us would have seen the video of some, Norwegian restaurant, glass environment, huge wooden, plates to serve the food, and the way it is going. So I'm just giving an example. So that, we'll have to, each business will have to think how will they render, I would say to the extent possible, COVID-proof service or a product or this thing. So I think that will be a focus from a customer perspective. The customer will be expecting that.
So if yes, please carry on.
Even for that matter, even for company secretaries, chartered and lawyers also, for example, say I had a team going on the field for the audit work to the clients. So we'll also have to be taking care that none of them are, sort of from a health perspective, any issues vis-a-vis. So they should not be the, I would say, the carriers of the COVID or the corona or whatever. I think all of us will have to be, so we'll also have to see how we render our services from that perspective.
I think we have already crossed our 1 hour time. So we will now, I will sum up today's session. But before it, I will request each participant, if they have any question in the meanwhile, they may punch in. So I think whatever we have discussed, I have just, when Nilesh Bhai was speaking, I have coined an acronym after whatever pearls of wisdom, what I am heard from you too. And that acronym is CID. And C stands for creativity, I stands for innovation, and D stands for digital. So I think going forward, these 3 keywords are going to be very important. Your
Absolutely.
view.
Absolutely. I'll start using that acronym now.
Yeah, Mr. Sinha, CID, how you feel? CID, creativity, innovation,
right.
and digital.
I would at CID का बात एक E जोड़ दीजिए और P जोड़ दीजिए. I think that is very much important. That is mindset, positivity. That we need to be very much future ready, positive, and hopeful for doing better things in future. It is not that Corona has killed us. It has changed our way of life. And this challenge is a positive challenge, and we will definitely be successful as a country, as professionals, as business houses, whatever role we do play.
So,
that's the way I think.
Mr. Vikramji, on the end, last question coming your way. If I ask you to pass on some positive message for all the professionals who must be watching us today, what is your views? What you would like to share with them on a positive side?
See, I'm always an optimist, and I think we as professionals, we are generally very, very adaptive. So I think we need to adapt to the change, as Sutan also mentioned earlier. I think in case we don't adapt, we'll perish or we'll get extinct like the dinosaurs. So those who adopt to this new paradigm, I think we'll thrive and we'll succeed. And I can already see that in my own team, the way they have adopted to the work from home, and I'm really amazed. See, and again, it's a holistic thing. How do you treat your people? How do you communicate with them? How do you talk to them? And, how do you enable them the tools to work from home? So you want them to work from, but they don't have laptops. They don't have Wi-Fi at the home. I think all these factors will be there. So to the professionals, my view is that this too shall come to pass. All of us are saying that, and we know that. So let's gear up in this interim. I think all of us are gaining more and more knowledge by way of various, I would say, the technical webinars which are happening. Right. Let's learn a new technique, or a new knowledge, whatever you've been wanting to do. For chartered accountants, I'll say there are in-days courses, there's international tax, there is IBC. I think so many new things. Those are not into those news, assuming they've got time on their hands. Please use your time effectively to learn some new skills which will help you in the times to come. And of course, technology giving a basic this. If you're not tech savvy, please learn to be, how to use technology for being more productive in times to come.
Mr. Vikramji, one question has come from one of our participants, Mr. Rajesh Gandhi. He is saying that for professional, particularly for practicing CA, whether size would matter and whether merger bracket formal then loose arrangement would be a must, and what initiative institute or association like BCA should immediately take up by coming out with framework for such merger?
See, there is nothing like a compulsion. I think even in a country like US, which is one of the most developed countries, you've got sole proprietors, you've got mid-sized firms, you've got large firms. It depends on each person's temperament. I think whatever I said, this technology doesn't mean only if you're a large firm you can use technology. Technology is cheap. Only a mindset has to be there. How do I adopt technology for my basic thing and for my clients also? So it depends on your evolution at your firm level, in the sense how much See, it is like this. My view is, if you you have started your practice and you have sort of been doing everything. You have been doing say GST, income tax, audit, and maybe other things, advisory. As you grow, as your clientele grows, I think the time will come where you need to decide to specialize. Pick up one area and then take up people to join you. Starting initially, it could be sort of a loose arrangement. It's like dating, till the time you date somebody, whether your mindsets and your other things match, your thinking matches, and then you get into a marriage where you can merge. So if your firm is reasonably large, your client is, I think then you need to sort of look at that. Delegate areas which you don't want to focus, because each area will require specialized skills. GST every day changing, income tax, the changes happening regularly. International tax is a very fantastic area for work in the future. Audits, the accounting standards, the Ind AS, the auditing standards, and the way the NFRA, the regulatory requirements are so huge now. I think each area is a specialized area. Audit is specialized, tax, GST. So in my view, if you're grown, that possibly, yeah, you need to look at networking first and then merger as you feel appropriate. But there is no one size fits all. It's what your temperament and how you feel it has to be. Like as I told you, in US, individuals also are thriving. If you want to do large company work, possibly you'll need to have a larger orbit. Because what will happen is the moment your client becomes big and he raises private equity or goes for IPO, immediately there'll be a pressure from the merchant bankers to go to a larger firm. So size does make a difference, but not necessarily it's the right. So you can be a specialist in, say, we've got the likes of Mr. S.S. Gupta, Mr. Krishnan, Mr. Rajiv Luthia, or specialists in services, Tuloma Dalal, and so many, Sunil Gabawala. I can keep on giving names. So there is, you can be a niche boutique practice, you could be a polyclinic, you could be a retail outfit, or you could be a large, conglomerate, like a large firm. So I think the choice is yours.
At the end, I think, again, I will just ask both the gentlemen one simple thing, one quote or one song, some positive you would just refer. I'm not asking you to sing basically, but refer to sum it up going forward, which best describes the situation to come. And I'll give first request to Mr. Sutanu Sinha, any quote you would like to, or some song?
This song that Paul Robson, We Shall Overcome.
We shall overcome one day.
So
I think we have all grown up. I think one of the very beautiful songs, we shall all overcome one day.
Yes.
Nilesh bhai, your turn.
I will go with a saying, tough times don't last. Tough people do. So if you want to last, you need to be tough. And I'm very clear that tough times will never last. And tough people will last.
I will add it up by one of my quotes, which my bodybuilder sir used to tell us when we used to play cricket: no pain, no gain, more pain, more gain.
Absolutely.
So I think we all have taken enough pains, and it's only now time for a gain. So now I'll take this opportunity in thanking Mr. Nilesh Wikamji for at such a short notice, he agreed for our knowledge webinar, what we have been conducting. And also to Mr. Sutanu Sinha, I thank you from the core of my heart for devoting time out of your busy schedules. And also I'm thankful to all the participants for sparing their valuable time and becoming part of this knowledge sharing initiative. Now, before closing, I would be very happy in disclosing it to our panelists and as all to the public who are viewing us. Some big announcement coming from Udaan Saluters and Rishikesh Vyas. Please keep our page following. You all we are doing some very big webinar on management and leadership. I will be waiting, making you all guess for some time, and by today night we'll be disclosing it.
Thank you, Rishi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rishikesh.
Thank you, Nilesh.
Thank you, Sutanu. Good interacting with you also. And
sure.
Gaining more knowledge, I would say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all for hearing us.
Thank you. Thank you to all the participants.